I'm Chris Mann. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Policy and Advocacy at WIN. We're the largest shelter provider for families with children in New York City. We also operate around 500 units of permanent supportive housing. So we're in all 5 boroughs. So in addition to being a service provider, WIN also has a pretty robust advocacy arm. So today I'm going to talk to you about some of the advocacy work that we do, and particularly, one of the main ways that we engage in advocacy work, and that's through coalition building. So I'm going to talk about 2 coalitions that WIN leads, and then kind of some of the best practices that we've learned through our work with coalitions. So the first coalition I'm going to talk about is New York SANE, New York Shelter for All in Need Equally. So this coalition formed in response to attacks from the mayor and governor of New York State on New York City's right to shelter. So New York City has had a right to shelter for about the last 4 decades. Basically, what that means is that anyone seeking a shelter bed in New York City has a legal right to that shelter bed. And as we got kind of an influx of asylum seekers, the mayor and the governor said, actually, I think we should not provide shelter to people anymore. And they wanted to really gut the right to shelter. And so a number of us came together and said, that is fundamentally the wrong approach, right? You're not going to solve any issues. And in fact, you're going to create a lot more issues. And so there were a lot of other organizations that agreed. And so 5 of us kind of co-convened New York SANE. So the Episcopal Diocese of New York, Coalition for the Homeless, the Legal Aid Society, ACT, and WIN. And so we were able to kind of bring together a lot of other organizations. I see some of our coalition members in the room. And through that advocacy work, through kind of, elevating voices and making sure that it was not just WIN, the service provider, not just, one lone agency, but many agencies. We got more than 60 organizations together to kind of really put pressure on the mayor and the governor to say this is not the right approach. And through our kind of consistent advocacy, we were able to help pressure a settlement that preserves the core right to shelter in New York City. It's a settlement. It is far from perfect. There are a lot of issues with it that require additional advocacy, and New York SANE is continuing to push that advocacy. But through kind of the collective action, we were able to at least make some progress. And what was at stake was having a right to shelter in New York City. So another coalition that WIN leads is Housing Access New York. So this coalition was formed with the goal of passing the Housing Access Voucher Program. So HAVP is a dream program that would be very similar to Section 8, except it would be administered by the state of New York. It's a little bit more flexible than Section 8 in that it would be available to people regardless of immigration status or criminal justice involvement. So it's something that we've been pushing for. It started out with just a couple organizations, but we've kind of really formalized the coalition in the last year. We've brought in a lot of other groups. So we're up to 70 plus organizations from around New York State. And that's just through outreach and advocacy. And one notable thing about kind of our coalition for Housing Access New York is we have really diverse interests. So we have REBNY, which is the Real Estate Board of New York. If you're in New York, you've heard of REBNY. But we also have Vocal New York. And for pretty much every issue, these 2 groups are diametrically opposed, right? But on this issue, they agree, right? And so it's really powerful to kind of have them in the same coalition together. So some of the kind of best practices that we've taken away from the work that we've been doing over the last couple of years, by no means comprehensive, but just some of kind of the key things that I think are particularly helpful. Diversify, so bringing in a diverse set of stakeholders. So think about, who are influential people or groups that the elected officials you're going after are going to listen to. So, in the case of Housing Access New York, we have REBNY. In the case of New York Same, we have a lot of unions and labor. We also have a lot of religious leaders. And so, you're getting people in the ears of electeds that they're not necessarily used to hearing from on your issue, and that can be really helpful. Clarify, so making sure that you have one mission, right? So I think a lot of times when you get together with a lot of groups, they all kind of have different ideas about what you should be doing. And I think the key thing there is really finding the core mission of your coalition so that you can really galvanize support around that. If you have too many things, it's nearly impossible to get everyone in a room agreeing on that thing. So try and find that one core issue and then bring people together on that. Structure, it's really, really important to create a structure for your coalition, right? This is not rocket science. It's really simple, but just making sure that you have a facilitator for your coalition. We go to a lot of meetings where there's like not a clear facilitator. It's way less productive. So identify a facilitator, identify a backup facilitator to make sure that someone is always going to lead it. Someone ideally send an agenda before your meetings so that people know what they're coming to talk about. And then set a clear meeting time, right? So, if you're sending out a doodle poll every week to find a time, that's not going to be sustainable. So you need to find one time that you're going to meet consistently. I would say no more, at least once a month, right? Probably every 2 weeks is a better cadence. It's just important to kind of set that structure and have it in place. And that really helps to kind of just continue the momentum of what you're working on. And then the last one that I'll talk about is branding. And I think when people hear branding, they think like, oh, how are we going to find the money for that? You don't really need a lot of money. I mean, the Housing Access New York, I did this in Canva, right? It's not anything special, but we can put it on our letterhead. People recognize it when we're trying to meet with people. And you really want elected officials to, when they see your coalition name and the branding, think about your issue, right? So when you come to meet with them in state houses or whatever, they already know who you represent and what you're there to talk about. Also, create a website. Another thing that seems daunting, but it's actually easy. The Housing Access New York website I created in Squarespace. It's not very expensive. And it's a really helpful place to get new members to sign up and also to kind of have all of your information and what you're about in one place. So those are kind of the key takeaways.